So on Tuesday, as people are getting ready to vote, they were considering voting on an amendment to the Constitution of New Jersey to increase the minimum wage from $7.25 to $8.25, and to actually put into the Constitution that the minimum wage would continue to go up with inflation. Now, Fox News, of course, was very much opposed to that. They're like, no, the poor shouldn't get more money. Now, look, this is the working poor. If you're not working, you don't get the minimum wage. You don't get any wage, right? Now, theoretically, Fox pretends that they're on the side of the folks at home, with middle class or working poor, whatever it might be. No. If you're poor, there's no distinction at Fox News whether you're working or not. Either way, they want you to have as little money as possible and for their benefactors to have as much as possible. So they bring in Judge Napolitano here to make this absurd claim.
Is raising the minimum wage really a good policy? And is it even legal? Joining us now to weigh in, Fox News senior judicial analyst.
No, it's not a right. I mean, a right is something that comes from our humanity, the right to free speech and free thought and travel and privacy. Minimum wage is something that the government uses to force employers to pay low-end employees more than they're worth, and it actually results in putting people out of work. When the minimum wage goes up and employers are forced to pay entry-level people more than they're worth, they'll hire few of them. So the president says nobody who works full-time should be below the poverty line.
Right.
He's actually going to put more full-time people into the below the poverty line, because he's going to kick them out of work. And if your and my fellow voters in New Jersey pass this, and it looks like they will, that's going to result in more unemployment.
Well, you need to get to New Jersy and vote, and I've already voted 3 times.
I'm going back this morning to vote,
Right,
and I'm voting against this.
Thank you.
First of all, who can concentrate on what he's saying? Fox News has that no pants policy for women, right? That's literal. So Elisabeth Hasselbeck with the legs, and to get that skirt higher and higher up there, they literally tell her that. The Family Values channel tells them to wear skirts and does not allow them to wear pants. Gee, I wonder what they're paying attention. Do you know Roger Ailes, the guy who runs Fox News? Watches Fox News, according to everybody who's been in his office, has reported many, many times, with the volume off. He basically is looking for eye candy. He thinks because that's what the American people are looking for. And so first thing is get the legs up there, and then we'll worry about hating the poor and making sure they get less money later. So now let's concentrate on the substance of what Napolitano was saying. First he says, look, there's supply and demand issues. That's what he's intimating. Now, he's generally right about that. Like, so for example, if minimum wage was a yearly salary of $100,000, well, then, it'd be hard to hire. I run a small business, it'd be hard to hire people. Okay, because you don't have that much money to pay every person who works there, right? But it ain't $100,000. In New Jersey, it's $7.25 an hour, which is an incredibly low rate. In fact, did you know, and this is the most important thing, that if the minimum wage nationally had kept up with productivity of the American worker, right now, it would be over $20 an hour. So when Napolitano says if they raise the minimum wage, that these workers will be getting more than they're worth, oh man, that gets under my skin, man. What do you mean more than they're worth? The reality is, if the minimum wage kept up with the productivity of the American worker, it would actually be much, much, much higher. But instead, corporations bribe politicians legally, and the politicians set the rules so the minimum wage would not keep up. It wouldn't keep up with inflation. It wouldn't keep up with productivity, so that the corporations and their executives got to keep basically the rewards of your labor. Now look, I know the CEOs, of course the CEO is going to get paid more, right? And if you'd all worked together and he got paid more, but you got paid your fair share, everything would have been fine. But that's not what happened. And then Fox News comes out here and says even $7.25 shouldn't exist, let alone it being raised to $8.25 in New Jersey. And the idea, he says, oh, no, it's not a right. Look, whatever you consider to be a right is an interesting question. But they make it sound like it's religious, like God gave us freedom of speech. So that comes from our humanity. What does it mean it comes from our humanity? Where is that in the Bible? And then he said to Jesus, give them freedom of assembly. No, that's in the Constitution, okay? That comes from democracy. That comes from the consent of the governed, okay? So if we wanted to make minimum wage a right, we could. And in fact, the good people of New Jersey did, because it won overwhelmingly, 61% in favor of it. It's now in the Constitution of New Jersey. So Fox and Napolitano, go ahead and suck it.